What if you could run your agency like a Navy SEAL team? Sharp, fast, and ready to win. In this conversation, I interview Kevin McGrew. He's a Navy veteran, a 6-time founder with 3 successful exits, and he's the author of the new book, Smack, The New Era of Marketing Warfare. In this conversation, we'll talk about how to build an effective team that owns the mission, how smaller teams can beat agencies with deeper pockets, and how the SMAC method can help you move, adapt, and win. Enjoy. Kevin, so you have been one of the founding members of the AON, the Agency Owner Network, and I'm so happy that you're there. Like, you're one of the people who is an absolute advocate for this group. The first question I wanted to ask you is, what brings you into the Agency Owner Network?
Yeah, I've got some gray hair here, so I've been around a while, but I've been part of a lot of different things over the years. And what I've realized is eagles don't flock. Eagles come together for a purpose. Chickens flock, ducks flock, geese flock, but eagles soar, and they soar alone a lot of times. And so when eagles gather for a purpose, you pay attention to that. And so to me, this is like an eagle's nest where eagles gather. And so we can share war stories, share challenges. We can lay down, let our hair down and just be real and authentic. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned on this is the transparency of the realness of where people are at. We just live in a world where everything's fake. TikTok, everybody says they're driving a Lambo and they're driving a Toyota Corolla. And, I just find it so transparent, and you don't feel like you got to pump things up and impress people. You just like, how can I help you? So I wanted that. And so when you created the AON, I said, I'm in, because I want to nurture that. I want to attract eagles in here.
Man, I love that. And on the kind of eagle topic, you have a background in the Navy. I'd love to dive into a little bit more of that, because you just wrote Smack, your new book, and that has, shoot, move, adapt, communicate is all military and based on your Navy experience. But when you're in the Navy, I would imagine, I haven't been in the military, but I would imagine that it's a pretty strict regimen and leans much more into the logical side of the brain as opposed to the creative side of the brain. But in marketing, it's an art and a science. So I can see where you get the logical side, but where does the artistic side come from in your life? Do you have an influence?
Yeah, it's a great question. And honestly, it's kind of where the real magic of my work comes from. Is what the Navy taught me is discipline. I think I was a natural creative, curious young person. I'd get in trouble. I would take risks. I would do things that, somebody who liked regiment probably wouldn't do. And so for me, the Navy really brought home some discipline for me, taught me discipline, how to tie my shoe right over left, left over right, how to make my bed, those fundamental things that, creatives don't do. And it brought to me systems, impressioned me with systems and precision, how important they are in order to function in a battlefield, kind of thing. And, but it also taught me how to stay calm in chaos. When chaos happened, I'm like, oh, crap, I'm very reactive naturally. I'm Colombian, South American, talk with my hands and all this stuff. And when you're around other professionals and the shit's hitting the fan, excuse the terminology here, but how to stay calm in the chaos is what really I took away from my Navy experience, and think strategically under pressure. When there's chaos, it's hard to think, so we trained all the time. So everything you do becomes muscle memory. So when the poop's hitting the fan, you're confident in what you got to do, and so that staying calm in chaos and strategically under pressure, think strategically, helped me gain those skills. Now, did I use that when I started entrepreneurialism? Not necessarily. Now, we'll talk a little bit about that, but that's kind of where the creativity thrives. Is in order to be creative, you need calmness in a sense. And so being able to have chaos happening, have calmness, allows you to be creative in the eye of the storm, if you will. But so marketing is creative problem solving with constraints, is the way I like to position it, right? And that's kind of what we did every day on board the ship. I was on board a ship called the USS Long Beach. It was a nuclear powered warship, a cruiser, one of a kind. It was very forward weapons wise. We had all we were the test platform for everything. And my job, I wasn't a cook. I wasn't a weapons guy. I wasn't a radar person. I lived in the Combat Information Center. I lived in the middle of where all the gathering of information and dissemination of information happened, which was a very unique experience in the military. Not very many people get. You have to have clearances to be in there. You're around all the decision makers. Our job is to identify threats quickly, bring in those threats, disseminate the intel to those that can make decisions quickly. And it's high stakes. So everything was about solving high stake problems with limited information and do it fast, just constantly doing that. And so you go up and talk to the cooks, you have a break and they're like, what's happening down there? What's happening all around us? They have no idea, right? But I kind of had a window that not a lot of people did into the whole battlefield. And so I'd say I live in the middle. If like your original question, how I use logic and data to set the framework and then bring creativity and energy and storytelling to make it move people. And that's why the SMAC framework works so well. It's structured enough to guide, but it's flexible enough to adapt and win. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to succeed especially in an owner position in an agency, you're constantly taking in that new data and making decisions that are also creative. But like you said, like with constraints, we can actually bring out more creativity.
Exactly.
And so I absolutely love that approach and can't wait to hear more about the book, which congratulations.
Thank you. Actually, it comes out June 10th. I'm pre-launching it right now to get the word out. Yeah. So I'm in pre-launch mode right now. I'm getting the manuscript out to like Eric and Neil and they're giving me great feedback and all these other authors and stuff to get testimonials and endorsements. So that, and we're just right now where we're at is we're finalizing the book cover, which I'm really excited about. So I want to share that inside the group, but the actual like launch on Amazon date is June 10th.
Okay. So Amazon is where we can get it.
Yes. Amazon and hopefully everywhere else books are sold after the 10th. Correct.
Nice. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, I know I see you're pushing it and I'm also supporting you on LinkedIn as much as I can. But you were talking about early on in your entrepreneurial journey, you really cultivated this discipline from the military, and you and I think are both very much extroverts. So the entrepreneurship route was your path. I mean, you're a 6X founder and you sold 3 of the businesses. I wanted to ask, of the businesses that you sold, did you start with the end in mind? And kind of where were they in the 6? Like, was it the last 3? Was it the first 3? Was it every other? Like, did you start with the end in mind when you sold the businesses?
That's a great question. I've shared this quite a bit, but some were built with the end in mind and others were just good opportunistic plays, kind of thing. So my first exit kind of was a grind and hustle business that kind of hit early with profitability. So I kind of got lucky, to be honest. And, I didn't set out to sell it when I started. I was just kind of I just right place, right time, right story. But when I got offered, it was a publishing play. It was called Biz to Biz. It was a publication that I lived in Vancouver, British Columbia at the time, and it kind of went to a large community, a suburb of Vancouver, not the downtown. And it was kind of the newsletter, if you will, a physical for businesses. So it wasn't like a home, the average consumer, you'd get like, stuff in your mail and you can read about what's going on in town. This was more for businesses. And it was an advertising play. So I get like the post office would advertise, UPS, FedEx would want to reach out to other businesses. So they were my initial advertisers. And it hit. It was very successful. Nothing else like it out there. And I was making good money and I had a sales team going out and selling advertising, and the local newspaper, I was dipping into their profits, kind of thing. And so they came and knocked on my door and offered me $500,000. I never knew at that time, that was quite a few years ago, that was a lot of money. I mean, it always sounds like more than it is, but I probably could have got more, but I was so young and new to this that and I was so flattered somebody would want to buy it, to be honest. I sold it. And what I realized was they wanted me to work as a slave for the next 3 years to do it. And so luckily I negotiated a quicker out where I wouldn't take the last 25 grand. I could just walk away, kind of thing. And I did that because I felt like this is not me. I need to go start something new. So yeah, I didn't sell the first one. I didn't set out to sell it, but when they had a solid multiple there, I was doing about 200 grand. It was like a 2x multiple kind of thing. And I didn't even know what multiples were back then, to be honest. But yeah, that was my first foray into doing something. So I used that money to start another business called Tech Track. And again, it's a long, so I won't go into the whole story, but I saw an opportunity, a business. I'm a problem solver. I saw a problem. I looked around, nobody was solving it. So I solved it. I landed a big deal with Electronic Arts, EA, and they bought my software that I created. And then it turned into a service as well. And I got more intentional about it when I built it. So at this point, I knew people might come and buy things. I, along the way, would try to I try to keep the house clean. So if somebody wanted to buy my house, I didn't have to clean the whole house, if you will. It was ready to go. It was set up properly. It wasn't a sole proprietorship. I had a LLC kind of equivalent. And, I was learning how to do business. So each one, it evolved more as my learning evolved. And the biggest thing I learned in all that is build a business with reoccurring revenue. You don't have to be a hero and a zero every month, or zero and a hero, kind of thing. You want to work hard, have reoccurring revenue happening while you go hunt some more, kind of thing. And I did that with the franchise that I started called Hygienicomp. When we first started, it was kind of computer cleaning. You clean computers in the old days. These are like early stage computers. I had a Armor All for plastic, if you will. It made it look good, but it was also a disinfectant. And we'd understand this a lot better now with COVID. Is like viruses are very viral, in a sense. So we hit on something when we landed a big contract with banks, cleaning their computers and their keyboards and everything. We made it look pretty because they would get marked up with ink pen and everything. And it didn't look good when you walked into a Bank of America and it was all marked up. So we would clean them on the outside, vacuum the inside from the dust bunnies that would cause the motherboards to burn up. And then we also disinfected it, which we realized that was the more important part and kept us coming back, that reoccurring revenue. And back then you could smoke in work, believe it or not, like people in the bank used to smoke at work. And you get this yellow coating on the computers and stuff, right? So when we come in, people would complain, oh, they're putting dust in the air everywhere, So I ended up figuring out how to acquire these air cleaners from Oric Corporation. And we'd put in air cleaners and leave them there for 3 days. So as we're cleaning, the dust nobody would sneeze and complain about it. So when we get back to get the air cleaners, people say, no, you can't take those. We want those. Really? And so we started renting them to people. And that was my reoccurring. That's how I sold 40 franchises in about 18 months. Was that reoccurring? Every time we left one behind, it was paid for the first payment we got. And it was just pure profit after. We'd come every month and replace the filters because they were like metal filters, reverse ion, like an ion filter, and that would knock down the dust basically. But instead of paper filters, we just replace these metal filters that we'd clean in commercial washing dishwashers. And that's the only cost we had, was the replacing of the refreshing of the filters. And it was a very lucrative business. And I ended up having a PE firm buy that out from me. We built it to 40 franchises. Someone came along and I was ready to be done with franchising at that point because I realized it was a babysitting job. People didn't really want to go out and sell. They just wanted kind of to get out of corporate America and buy something where it just had money and you go sell it for me, Kevin. Yeah, I started Tech Track from that because when we were cleaning computers, the banks would say, hey, while you're cleaning them, we don't really know how many computers we have. Can you inventory them? Tell us the barcode, the serial numbers on them and how many we have per branch. And because we have this problem coming, it's called Y2K and we need to.
Oh yeah.
Right. So that was a new opportunity, new problem, new opportunity. So I sold Hygienicomp, started TechTrack, and landed all these banks doing their computer inventories. And they would use our software to manage it after we left. And
super smart.
yeah, so I landed Yahoo. We did 17 data centers for Yahoo. We beat out IBM and HP, which goes to my book of David versus Goliath. A lot of my business experience was being a small business competing with big guys and winning. And so I really kind of reverse engineered that in the SMAC framework to help small businesses punch up.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the conversation. I'm Austin Willman. And if you're a 7-figure agency owner and you're tired of figuring everything out all alone, you should consider joining the Agency Owner Network. It's a private network exclusively for 7- and 8-figure founders where we swap strategies and solutions on profit, scale, people, and structure. There's no course, there's no guru, it's just real peers sharing what's working for them in the trenches today. If you want in, you can go to agencyowner.network/join and apply to be a part of the next cohort. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, move fast, adapt quick.
Yes.
And man, it's obviously worked, and you're a proven founder that like moving fast and solving real problems is the way to go, and not just conceptualizing and thinking, oh, this might be a good idea. I noticed that when you were just saying in the first business, it was you that was building it, but in the one that you were just talking about, it was we were changing out everything. And so you built a team, it sounds like, as you progressed as an entrepreneur, you started incorporating more and more people. And I actually got a chance to meet one of the team members, Henry. He's one of your copywriters, and it sounds like he does a lot more than just copywriting, but he was sharing his AI forward process of how he writes high impact blogs that can really drive traffic in like less than half the time that it used to take him. And it sounded like he felt really empowered to take on that initiative on his own. So I'm curious to hear, with AI like replacing people left and right, how are you systematically in your organization empowering the people to come up with those ideas and just run with them? Like, do you have systems, or do you have like a meeting cadence or incentives? How do you guys approach that at Eversocial?
That's a great question. Henry's a beast, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
That's the kind of thinking that you're mentioning is exactly what we look for at Eversocial. But kind of get to your point is we operate under I'll give Jocko Willnick Willnick, I think it is the Navy SEAL shout out here. He does a framework called extreme ownership. Mm-hmm. And we operate a very flat organization, and each person has extreme ownership over their subject matter expertise. And so even though we might know more than them on that subject, they're the expert. We come to them for the guidance, answer, and we empower them to feel that way. If we're stepping on their toes constantly, even though I might know more, my goal is to add more value to make it better, but ultimately he owns it. So he owns the delivery of the framework in which we deliver. And it's always about improvements, speed improvements. How do we leverage things? It's all about leverage. When I was an entrepreneur, I could hustle. I used all my will, my strength, my power, stay up late working. I didn't sleep sometimes to do proposals and stuff. And you're going to burn out, that way. And if you use leverage, you're not having to exert as much energy to get the same effect done. I don't believe in AI replacing people. I believe in human-driven AI, if you will, because I don't think people are ready to give AI the reins totally. And customer-wise and everything, they still want to see humans there. But if my team can do something in one day where it took them a week before, they want that change too, right? They're scared of it at first, but once they see it and they can do it consistently and they're churning out higher quality content at 1/10 of the time and they can do more, they have more job satisfaction from that. And so I don't want them to feel scared they're going to lose their job from AI, but I want them to realize that if they don't want to drive the Ferrari, if they want to drive it like a Honda Accord, somebody who knows how to drive a Ferrari is going to come and drive that baby faster. So they got to learn how to drive a Ferrari. Is the way I put it.
Yeah. So, can't be replaced by AI, but humans who know how to use AI will be replacing the humans who don't. right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
The big thing is I don't believe in micromanagement, but if I see somebody not doing their job, I micromanage. It's just like an instinct. I hate it. I'm an anti-micromanager, but I do it because I get pissed at people for not being as effective as they could be. But that expectation you have of people also helps them level up. And you reinforce that in one-on-one meetings and quarterly reviews and things like that. But we operate more like a special forces team than a traditional agency. So that means trust, that means autonomy, that means accountability. Special operators don't micromanage what that guy does. He's the point man. His job's to get us through the jungle. I'm here to do my job. Everybody's got their 6 degrees. Focus on your lane, or not, so I don't say focus on your lane, but do what you're expected to do so the team doesn't have to look over their shoulder, right? And so that mindset envelops everything we do at Eversocial. If you go into our About Us, you're going to see our corporate values emit that is, whatever diligence is an expectation we have of everybody. If the client's holding you up, that's not an excuse. If you need to put placeholder images on the website because they're not giving you images they owe you, you go to get those placeholder images and they'll want to replace them because they're going to see that that's not their images. But we're going to get the website done whether you're helping us or not, kind of thing. We'll make it better when you give us those images, but we're not going to wait and go, hey, we're still waiting for those images. That's no excuse where we work, right? So we encourage experimentation a lot by giving the team 2 things, guardrails and ownership. So experimentation is so important because if people are waiting for other people to bring them what's tried and true, their brain is never going to evolve to be curious. We're looking for curious people. So what we do is we give them guardrails and we give them ownership. So you own this, but here are the guardrails within that. We set outcomes that matter, like conversions, engagement, lead flow, and then we let them build it. Like here's the outcomes we want. Like I'll give you a quick example. When we were having kids, my wife and I, when they were young, my wife would say, can you get up with the kids and change their diapers, and I need to sleep. And I was like, okay, I gotcha. And she'd wake up in the morning and she wanted to go from disposable diapers to cloth diapers because she wanted to save the world. I'm like, what the heck are you thinking here? But so in the morning she'd wake up and there's like 3 diapers wrapped around the baby, and she's like, you're wasting diapers. And I go, but is the poop leaking out the side? Like the job got done, right? And like how it got done is up to you. But the goal was change the diaper, make sure they're dry, and their poop's not leaking out the side or, peeing all over the place. So how we get there, we leave it up to them so they can learn within those guardrails. I don't know if that makes sense. But,
I love that.
So they know the SMAC framework. They know the SMAC framework. They know the objective. And now it's on them to move and adapt.
Love that. Yeah. They're not just responsible for tasks, they're responsible for an outcome. And I think that's a huge differentiator. And you'll bring in different people, the ones who are curious versus the ones who are just looking to, get the paycheck. And
yes,
you had told me a while back that you have an onboarding process that's more like an educational course. You're very outspoken in your belief that knowledge is power, and knowledge in action is where the real magic happens. So I'm curious. I mean, is there like anything particular that you do in your onboarding process to get people up to speed so they stay around longer, they, take initiative? Is there anything like unique that you guys do at Eversocial?
That's a great question because I don't know if it's unique. I just know it's us, because I have a lot of people don't share their onboarding. Definitely there's case studies, and usually you're learning from bigger companies that have more a little bit more transparency. I don't like to do things like if it's a big company thing, I usually go the opposite direction. But through the School of Hard Knocks, I got my PhD in there, but or my MBA, I should say. What we've done, this is what's working now. It's always evolving because time evolves, information evolves. But what we're doing now is we have a 1-week onboarding period where there's no interaction yet with the team, or it's all orientation. It's orientation to our systems. We don't expect people to come in and know how to use Slack. We want them to know how to use Slack, but we don't assume they know it just because they've used it in the past. In the Navy, we had a term that we used to sing when we're in boot camp called Tearing You Down to Build You Up. So you had to take all these people from disparate backgrounds, and they would shave your head, they would rip off your clothes, they give you new clothes, everybody looked like a prisoner, and you have shoes that don't fit, kind of not in your own skin. There's no confidence. You're kind of like torn down. And then they build you up. You learn how to dress yourself properly. You know how to put creases in your shirt. You know how to do things, wear your belt buckle a certain way, shine your shoes. You take pride in that ownership. So we kind of do that real quick, where we system-wise go, we are assuming you know nothing, so you're going to learn at the I know everything about slide. We get a lot of like, I know everything about Google Workspace, the Google Docs, Power Slides, whatever. And I go, just don't fight it, bro. Go back to the base. And everybody always comes back, oh my God, I learned so much, right? So we definitely put them through a boot camp, if you will, of systems. We orientate them to our mindset. We're very different than any other job they've probably ever been in. So it's very team. Like the team depends on each other. We're only as strong as our weakest link. If somebody's not pulling their weight, it's going to affect the whole team. That's the bad thing about this structure. The good thing is everybody's looking forward, not over their shoulder. And so we train them on, they get user guides. So I got this from Eric, a user guide that's my personality, but I put it in there, how to work with Kevin, kind of thing. Here's what I expect. So they learn all these things ahead of time, so they're not failing or flailing, I call it, as they're entering conversations and because it just doesn't establish confidence very quickly when you're messing up a lot, kind of thing. So I want them to win. So I'm going to tear you down. I'm going to build you up. And at the end of it, you're going to feel more confident walking into this thing. So they're kind of isolated from the group. I get to see their progress on all the courses they're taking, and they have to give me summaries. They have to give feedback. Is there a better course out there? Or because sometimes they go, hey, I took a course that's way better than this. I'm like, oh, awesome. Let's replace it, kind of thing. So I'm always trying to improve things. And then at the end of that week, I sit down with them one-on-one and I said, okay, you've made it through boot camp. At that point, I let people go sometimes because they didn't work fast enough. I can see their work ethic. I have certain cadences that I can tell if they're working hard or not. We use a time tracking tool that takes pictures of their screen and everything. I can see their work process, how they work, kind of thing. Not that I want to spy on people, but it's just, I need to be able to make good decisions, fire or hire quickly, right?
Yeah.
And most of the time, by the time they got there, they're pretty good candidates. So it doesn't happen very often. But some people sneak through because I really like them, or I want to believe they're going to be great. And those are the ones that usually fail. So we orientate them the following week. Now it's just they're flies on the wall. They sit in on and kind of co-pilot with someone doing that job. And they're in all the meetings. We put them in as many client meetings as possible. We get them to tell, we do onboarding meetings with the client. They get to tell what their role is. They kind of know the cadence of how to talk to clients and things. And that pressure of not having to perform work right out of the first few weeks, we find a longer trajectory, less stress and burnout fast. And they are usually going from what I call part-time thinking or stinking thinking to full-time mindset, kind of thing, because a lot of them are working remotely in the past and stuff. They're not, even if they're working 40 hours, they're not really working 40 hours. When we work 40 hours, we work 40 hours. Most people are part-time, believe it or not, like they're 25 hours, 30 hours a week, because I believe in good balance, but they're doing 40 hours of work in 25 hours because that's the way we operate, right? And a lot of people get time off. Like I have one of my project managers, she's going to take her son to a tournament. She gets paid time off to go take her son on a Friday. She's in Argentina. They get a lot of holidays, man. I tell you, the foreign countries, like they take every holiday. It's like a mandatory holiday there. I'm like, dang, I wish I lived there. But we have flexibility. You take time off, you work harder on certain other days to be able to take that time off. And so we never let the team down. We always communicate that job. Like we document everything so that somebody had to cover for them. They're gone. We know where everything's at, what the expectations are. Somebody could jump in and support that customer very quickly. That's that kind of lack of stress and that calmness in the chaos really helps. And it's not the way people come from everybody come from corporate and things like that. They're used to staying in their lane, work in their box, do their thing. It's very asynchronous communications, 24 24/7 communications happening, but not while while you're online, you're able to catch up, kind of thing. So anyways, that's a lot of information, but hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And with the flat organization, you kind of have to be, multifaceted in order to cover for people when they do want to have that sort of flexibility, because you would expect that as someone working at Eversocial, right? Like,
Yes,
I want to know that the team has my back, right?
People are cross-trained all the time. If you're a project manager, you get your certification in Facebook ads, Google ads, even though you're not doing it every day, but you know enough to be dangerous now. You know enough to what to expect from those subject matter expertise, because sometimes we outsource, and you just can't set and forget. You got to keep them accountable to what the client wants. And we're the client advocates. We work at the client's office and like, hey, where is this? Why aren't you doing this? How come you're not doing this? Instead of like, you're the expert, you do your thing. We're like constantly like, hey, the client's expecting this. We need to deliver on this. We're only getting 5 leads a week. I need 10. What's up with that? So that's kind of the internal mindset, is the client's trusting us. Nobody's coming to help us. We got to make sure it gets across the finish line.
I love that. You're the client advocate. Yeah. So
yes.
The clients are never down, breathing down your neck. You're the one
we're breathing down necks. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Kevin, is there anything else that you wanted to share or talk about? I know the book is coming out in a month and a half or so. Was there anything that we didn't touch on?
Well, I think the big thing I would say is, as an agency owner or a business owner in general, is it's really shifting mindsets. The business is war. Marketing is a battlefield. 50% of business owners are going into the battlefield blind. The SBA has a statistic: within 2 years or first year, 25% of businesses fail. Within 5 years, 50% fail. And within 10 years, 75% fail. So I have a real heart. I grew up with both my parents had small businesses. I just have this heart to see people succeed. And that's why I shifted from being an entrepreneur into marketing, because I felt it was the way I could help businesses succeed, where most business owners don't understand marketing. That's a weakness for most business owners. So I wrote this book to save 1 million businesses that would otherwise fail within 10 years. So by 2035, my goal in life through this book is to save 1 million businesses. And it's like the kid on the beach. The sun is really hot, the water's going out, and there's thousands of starfish on the beach, right? And Mom, we got to save this. He's in there, he's grabbing a starfish, throwing it in the water. And this jogger's coming by and he goes, hey kid, let me tell you something. You're not going to make a difference. And the kid looks up at the guy and he grabs another one, he throws it in, he goes, tell it to that one, kind of thing. And that attitude is kind of why I wrote the book. It's called The New Rules of Marketing Warfare, because business is war. And if you don't have that mindset, you're going to fail eventually, because you're not going to go into the battle equipped to be successful. So this is a guide. It's a Sherpa. It's a commander, a special ops force that's going with you into battle, basically. And it's how to build a special ops team. It's a framework to shoot, move, adapt, communicate. Shoot means know who you're shooting at, know who your target persona is. Everybody's spraying and praying out there. Literally, they're shooting and hoping something falls down, and that's going to bring home enough bacon. Move is the best thing we have as a small business, is agility, is being able to move quickly. Big companies can't move on a dime. We can. So use that as an advantage, not a disadvantage. Adapt is about knowing we have data just like the big guys have data. We have GA4, Google Analytics. You have all this data that's floating around. You got to know how to interpret the maps, the intel, how to take the intel and make decisions for your business. So that's adapt. And then communicate is be able to communicate concisely, powerfully to your audience and to your team, and developing those skills. So we teach that in the book. And so that's called SMAC Framework. The book's called The New Rules of Marketing Warfare, because the old rules don't work. So yeah, that's coming out June 10th. Follow me on LinkedIn and connect with me on Instagram as well. I'm active on there. And I'm very approachable. So don't hesitate to reach out.
You are approachable, Kevin. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm looking forward to the book. I'll see you on the inside of the Agency Owner Network.